Hey guys, so this is attempt number 3 to post my first YouTube video to the channel. Welcome to the channel. If you came here from the Facebook page, welcome, thank you very much. And if you're here for some other reason, then welcome and thank you very much. So I am going to read on this channel mostly fiction, nonfiction, but prose, pretty much all of it. And the first thing I'm going to do for you is a 5-part series. It's called Cup of Joe. And I'm going to warn you in advance, it's sort of dark. There is some sort of dark imagery. So trigger warning, you know, if that applies to you. And I hope you enjoy it. So here it is, Cup of Joe, Part 1. Third time through, and I still didn't remember to scroll all the way to the top before I started. All right. I had begun today like any other. I woke up a little late, had a smoke on the balcony, and went in to make some breakfast. It was then that I heard a strange humming from outside. Living in the heart of a major city, these sorts of noises were somewhat commonplace. But for some reason, I felt like I should investigate. I mean, don't ask me why. I wasn't generally interested in life outside of my phone, and nobody was twiddling anything about hums. So honestly, when I look back, I'm not even sure why I noticed it. I probably wouldn't have on any other day. "Scree!" shouted the kettle as I made my way back over to the window leading out onto the balcony. I had a pair of sliding glass doors separating my apartment from the 23rd floor patio. I never liked heights, and this was almost enough to get me to quit smoking. But luckily for me, there was a thick layer of wood built over the metal grating, so you couldn't really see down. I would stare at this floor several times a day while I smoked, but my eyes were curious today, and they wanted to see what else the world was offering, you know, outside of my little terrace. I pushed open the glass door. There was a rush of chilly wind. I didn't realize it was this cold in my nicotine-laden stupor a few moments ago. I tied my blue robe, stitched with images from my favorite sci-fi show. It featured a time traveler and arguably a madman saving the world in bizarre ways. I tucked my hair into a beanie-style cap I kept hung on the hook by the door for cold days, and stepped out onto the balcony. I stared out at the city. It was vast and loud. The buildings were so large they seemed to sway in the wind. You could hear a dim whistling sound as the breeze rushed between the massive towers. For some reason, the sound became louder. It echoed through my head and seemed almost unnatural when I realized that my kettle was still screaming at me. I turned quickly on my heel to rush back in and prepare my coffee. I thought that today was a bit odd for some reason, and that maybe I should take some time to think on it. My feet were barely through the door, however, when the wind once again sent a chill through my bones. It left me with an eerie feeling as I moved across the thick carpeting in my living room. I lived in a modest apartment, a small living space with a few electronics, a small bedroom with really only enough space for my bed, and a beautiful, if not tiny and quaint little kitchen. The kitchen got a lot of sunlight in the mornings, and I often used it as a reading light for the news. I know, it's outdated and silly, but I've always enjoyed the feeling of a newspaper in my hand, the smell of the ink and the crinkle of the pages as I moved from article to article. I grabbed the kettle and my favorite coffee cup, a large black mug with smoothed handle, big enough to fit my whole hand through. I'm not sure why, but I love that mug. I poured the boiling water in and dropped in a bag of coffee. I used to be a big coffee snob, but the ease of these teabag coffee packets have taken my life by storm. As it began to steep, I stepped to the door to get my paper, unlocked the 2 deadbolts and the chain, and swung the door open to find that no paper had arrived that morning. Perhaps I would have to watch the news. Oh well, maybe I'll catch up on the new book I'm reading. When I walked back over to my coffee, I noticed again coming from outside that same strange humming noise. It was oddly compelling. I took my coffee into my hands. It was warm and delightful as I clasped it between my chilly palms. My coffee and I went back to the patio door. Looking out over the city, the humming noise seemed louder and louder. It almost sounded like it was calling me out to the porch. I slid the glass door open and stepped casually out onto the patio. The height didn't bother me for once. I found myself scanning in all directions, just curious about that strange noise. I wandered around my little 5x5 balcony for a few minutes before realizing I hadn't bothered to look down yet. Perhaps the sound was coming from beneath me. So I proceeded to glance over the railing. It was a long way down, but it didn't seem like much for some reason. I leaned further, listening closely to the humming, and suddenly, I felt free. Something was calling me to a new life. It was time to write the great story I'd always been waiting on. As I leaned out, I let one foot raise up, and then the other, and I flew. I soared above the ground with the joy of a life completely reborn. Today was the first day of the rest of my life. It was a launching point, I realized, to a better understanding of joy. Today was a beautiful day, and this was a beautiful experience. This was the day I died. The child in the car below me didn't deserve it. He and his mother never saw me coming. Well, they may have. But as normal, the traffic was deadlocked on the streets below me. So this was not just the day I died. It was not really the day that I felt alive. It was certainly not the harmonious joy I had been longing for. And it was not the peace and quiet for which I had secluded myself. Today was the day I became a murderer, a thief, stealing away the years of trying and joyous times. I spent my life trying to make life better for people, and in my death, I had ensured that 2 other lives could never experience the bliss of flight like I had. I still hear that strange and soft humming noise. I don't know what it is, but as the color and light fades from my eyes, the sound continues to ring out, louder than the shouts and the cries of the onlooking, more penetrating than the glass and metal that had impaled me on my impact. This humming, unending, unstoppable, it rings on and on. That is Cup of Joe, part 1. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll tune in for part 2. It's going to be coming out maybe in a few minutes, but probably tomorrow. We'll see. Depends on how motivated I am. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for your time. I greatly appreciate all that you do for me, and all my love. I hope whatever time of day it is that you watch this is a beautiful time for you. Take care, guys.